Hello.
Hello. How is everybody doing today?
We're on different sides today. It's weird for me.
We are. I don't know how to switch them. It's all good. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Lunch and Learn Live. It is another beautiful Monday. So we've got an important topic to talk about. Okay, most women feel it before they even notice it, right? And that is cravings. And today I want to talk about how we actually shift and transition and help us break free from those cravings. So, how many of you are dealing with cravings? Go ahead and mention it in the chat box. And what do you do to manage those cravings? So, Carissa, you ever have any cravings?
Yes. I feel like everyone struggles with cravings, right?
Yes.
But not a lot of people really understand where they're
Yes.
coming from. And I just want to make it a point to say, it's not about shame or guilt, right? Around food. It's really about learning how to listen differently to your body because why do cravings happen?
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly. And that's what we need to jump into today because there are definitely different reasons why we have cravings, right? And it doesn't matter what the reason behind it is. It may not be something that we want to ignore. We want to pay attention to what our body signals are always because they're telling us something, whether
Mhm.
it be that our cravings are coming from physical things or that our cravings are coming from emotional things. Either way, it doesn't matter. We just know that we're experiencing those cravings and we should pay attention to what it is that our body is telling us. And I know like as we're talking about rewiring our cravings today, it's really important that we're not just ignoring them, right? We don't mean like rewire, like pretend that it's not happening. We mean like rewire because you're going to get curious as to why your brain is craving or why your body is craving something specific. And so that's really what I want to dive in today. Okay, because cravings, they're not a sign of weakness.
Mm.
They're actually a signal from your body, from your mind. It's not, your cravings aren't like there's something wrong with you or you're broken or you don't have enough willpower or any of those things. If you really just try to resist your cravings, then you're likely to stay stuck. And I think that that's where people end up in this vicious cycle versus actually rewiring them so that they can create real freedom. And we see it all the time with our clients.
I think that's a great point, right? Because the body really is wired for survival, not
Yes.
perfection, right? So when your body feels depleted, whether that's physically, right, your blood sugar drops, or whether it's emotionally, you're feeling stressed or tired, it really does push us towards like that fast energy. That's why we typically go towards like sugar or salt or carbohydrates or caffeine, right? And
Yes.
if the nervous system is dysregulated, meaning
Mm-hmm.
you're living in like that fight or flight all the time,
Yeah.
your cravings are really just going to be louder because your body is just scanning for you to like be like, all right, let me calm down, let me feel safe again.
Yes.
So it uses those foods to do that when ultimately it kind of has the adverse effect.
Yeah. I mean, and if you think about it, what are the foods that we often find ourselves craving? It's not, I'm not going to say it never happens, but it's not usual that people are craving broccoli, for example, or zucchini. Although, I mean, I do crave those things, but that's not where our usual cravings aim for. And so we want to start to hone in and identify what's the underlying root cause of that craving. So if we're going to rewire it, we've got to understand it.
Hmm.
And there's two areas for cravings, right? Number one is your physical, like there's actually physical triggers that are taking place. And number two is the emotional, where there's some sort of emotional trigger. So let's go into each of them, right? So when I say physical triggers, I mean things like your blood sugar, nutrient deficiencies, what's happening in your gut, in your microbiome. Dehydration is a big one that masquerades as hunger or cravings, and even hormonal shifts. So a lot of our perimenopausal, menopausal clients, they'll always say, I'm like ravenous all the time. Like all I want to do is eat. Or how many of you, it's like, it's a couple days before your cycle and you're like, gosh, where is the chocolate? Right. And so these are some of those physical triggers, but we've got to understand that there's emotional components to our cravings too. Like, how many of you have a craving when you're stressed out, right? Or when you're feeling sad, or when you're feeling lonely, or what about when you're tired, right? Does anybody else, like, you're tired and so you are just automatically reaching for food almost to keep yourself awake? That happens a lot. Or you're bored, or you're looking for a distraction, right? Like eating and cravings sometimes becomes a distraction, distracting us from something else that we're actually working on. Or
Mm-hmm.
the other piece is it's just a habit, right? Or a message that comes in, like you're watching TV and the person on the TV show is eating a chocolate chip cookie and you're like, oh my gosh, I really want a chocolate chip cookie. And now you're looking for a chocolate chip cookie, right? Or it's, you know, every time you used to have a something really spectacular happen in your life, you would celebrate with, I don't know, a glass of wine or something. And so that's now become a habit where you're always reaching for that wine. So those are what I would call emotional triggers, right? What do you want to add to that, Carissa?
No, I think you hit everything spot on. And I think that the good news is that cravings aren't a life sentence, right?
Yes.
You can absolutely rewire them on the physical, on the emotional, and on the pattern, right? And so at South Bay Wellness and like us sharing with you today, like we can approach it from multiple angles because cravings usually aren't the first thing like you were just talking about, right? So balancing the body first, right? It's like biology before willpower. So before you even get into the mindset, I think we should start with the physical body first, right? Like, is your blood sugar a roller coaster? Do you have poor gut health? Or your adrenals exhausted? Or you know what I mean? Like, you're going to crave. So
Yeah.
I think stabilizing the basics first with like high fiber, nutrient dense meals, supporting your digestion and microbiome are like a really great place to start.
Yeah. Yeah, give us a shout out for those of you who are watching. Definitely, you want to put your questions in here and share them with us today as we're talking about cravings. So let's start to dive into those, right? Because I mean, one thing is that blood sugar stabilization, or how many people, like, you have a meal and then after your meal you're like, oh my gosh, I need something sweet, right?
Yeah.
That can be A, something that we've created as a habit, or B, that we just didn't have a very good, well balanced meal. And
Mm-hmm.
that's something to always be on the lookout for. Because after you're finished eating a meal, you shouldn't have these, cravings for something else thereafter. So you want to look at the components of what you actually ate and pay attention to the patterns of what it is, right? Did you have a meal that was really high in carbohydrates, right? And didn't have any fat and didn't have any protein along with it? That can lead you just kind of wanting more and more. Are you is you know that blood sugar piece is really important. I'm always I keep drilling into our clients that we've got to pay attention to our blood sugar, because it's the metabolic dysfunction, the insulin resistance, and things like that that create an issue. So even if you've got, your blood sugar numbers on your blood work look normal, right? Like your A1C looks completely normal. I always say, well, what is your A1C? It's a good number to look at to have an idea, but it is an average. So if you're always spiking and crashing and spiking and crashing, sometimes that average looks the same. We've got to also look at what's happening, along with your insulin. But making sure that when you're eating in a way that stabilizes your blood sugar is really important. right? We're always telling everybody eat the vegetables first, and then your fat
Mhm.
and your protein, and then the carbohydrate stuff, if as often as you can, because that's going to help you stabilize your blood sugar. Movement, right? Before or after a meal will also help to stabilize your blood sugar. So there are tips and tricks and things like that that you can take on so that you're actually maintaining that. But if you're constantly on this blood sugar spike, you're going to find yourself in craving hell.
Yeah. And I think you just hit the nail on the head. So I want to highlight it because one of the most powerful things that we can do to rewire the cravings is to start paying attention to your patterns.
Yeah,
Right? Like we
exactly.
just started out saying. That's why we ask people to journal. And that's why you guys should start journaling at home, because cravings aren't random, right? They
Yes.
usually follow a pattern like you just discussed. So like just start asking yourself simple questions like, when do my cravings hit?
Yeah.
Is it after a stressful meeting? Is it 3 p.m. every afternoon? Is it after a poor night's sleep? If I skipped a
Mhm.
meal, under ate, over ate,
Yeah.
am I bored?
It's so funny. Listen, I get it, right? Writing everything down is a real pain in the tuchus, honestly.
Mhm.
And sometimes having to put it into an app and record it in an app, like, okay, it's like it can get annoying and tedious, and you're like, I don't want to do this. But honestly, it is one of the best ways to actually be able to see what's going on. Because the truth
Mhm.
is, I mean, if I ask you right now, what did you eat for lunch yesterday? Like, you're like, oh my God, what did I eat for lunch yesterday? Like, we've got to like stop and think about it. We're not even paying attention.
Yeah.
The other thing that happens is if we aren't paying attention a lot of the times, and so we don't even recognize what our eating patterns are. So being diligent about being, okay, you know what, for the next week, I'm going to write down everything I eat, everything I drink, I'm going to, rate my emotions throughout the day, pay attention to where those cravings are. I bet you will start to see something. The most important way to take back power and control over your health is to become your own health scientist. You
Mhm.
are an N of one, okay? And become your own scientist where you are looking at things, you're identifying the patterns, you're paying attention to things we're not normally paying attention to. There's so many things coming at us all the time. It's like our brain has to filter certain amounts of information out in order for us to be able to function. So where you put your attention is where you're going to get the most reward. So even if it's just for a week where you can start to identify these things, that's really important.
I think
But
that's great because you don't have to do it forever, right?
yeah,
And I tell clients that all the time. I'm like, we don't have to log everything for a long time, like just enough because the awareness breaks the autopilot, right?
yeah,
And once we start seeing the pattern clearly, then you could start making small changes that actually stick, because catching the pattern once or twice is kind of enough to make you go, oh,
look
no
at
wonder
that.
I was raiding the pantry every afternoon,
Yes.
and then you could see it's not because I'm weak. It's that your body was running on like that old survival script to those patterns, or, the blood sugar crashes, or hormonal imbalances. It's very freeing, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's what we're suggesting here, Carissa, is like for people to be in the driver's seat of
Yeah.
their health, right? Instead of searching Google for answers, or because that never goes well. It
Yeah.
really is about noticing what's happening with yourself, and that is a large part of of the way that you get to the point where you can create resolution, right?
Hmm.
So that's important, you guys. The other thing I want to talk about is gut health, because gut health also contributes a lot to our cravings. So, you know, I don't need to go through ad nauseum. We could talk for hours about the GI system, right? But our gut health will definitely spur on those cravings. So you want to make sure that you're doing things to promote your gut health, right? Eating lots of fiber, especially like prebiotic rich fibers, right? That's what feeds the good bacteria in your gut. But eating fiber, guys, vegetables, great, Great source of fiber, right? I think I'm always asking, so how many servings of vegetables did you get in today, right? That should be a mainstay in your diet. In the Body Beautiful program, we have like the Body Beautiful plate, right? Because we're not focused on counting calories and this, that, and the other thing, but we're looking at what does a plate look like. And it is, is half your plate there loaded with vegetables. That's the way that it should be. You want that fiber in. And then, I mean, processed sugars, high sugar foods, artificial sweeteners, those kind of things, they disrupt your gut as well. And I am a huge fan of, for most people, not appropriate for everybody, but for most people, is having the probiotic rich foods like the kimchi and the sauerkraut. Those are important for helping keep that gut microbiota strong. In fact, probiotics are really expensive. Like, to buy probiotics in a capsule, to get quality ones, I think you can go to like the local pharmacy and pick up a box for $20. And I kind of wonder what the efficacy of it is. But um, it is important for us to be always thinking about our gut microbiota. That's the gut brain connection. If you're always on an emotional roller coaster, which by the way can be part of the emotional triggers for cravings as well, then all these things, they're not black and white, you guys. They're all interconnected in one way or another.
Mm-hmm. And I also like to use the foods you were talking about, but also like I love movement. For me, helps tremendously. And
Mm-hmm.
then just, because it's supporting your detox pathways, but gently. I love to use my vibration plate. I love to castor oil pack. I love to
Mm-hmm.
dry brush, making sure, we mentioned hydration earlier, making sure I have my pH minerals in
Yes.
there is really helpful, because when your gut gets stronger, your cravings do get quieter,
Yeah.
right? And it's not about fighting harder. It's just about feeding that right side of you. And like the packaged foods too, like I'm pretty sure there's lots of scientific studies that many of us can look on, how it shows like the certain ingredients in there are made for you to be addicted to it. Right. So
Oh,
you're like, oh
absolutely.
my God, I can't believe I just ate this whole bag, and you're
Yes.
feeling shameful or guilty. But meanwhile, there's ingredients in there that cause that to happen into your brain. And it's just
Yeah.
so wild. So just try to stay away from them.
Yeah, there's a great book. It's called I forget the order. I may not be right on the order, but it's 3 words: sugar, salt, fat. But the author is Michael Moss, and it's a phenomenal book. When I was a professor at Hofstra, I was one of our assigned readings in one of the classes that I taught. And you guys, the food industry, I mean, they spend so much money to make sure that you keep coming back for more. So the more and more that we're actually eating these processed foods, the more you are literally training your body to want those processed foods. And it's amazing. I mean, Carissa, our clients say it all the time. Like, they clean up their diet and they're like, oh my gosh, like an apple never tasted so good before. Like, I never knew it tasted this way, because it's like our taste buds go numb and we can't really experience food for what it is, because the processed foods are manipulated. They have found the perfect amount of fat, sugar, and salt to put in the food to have you keep coming back and back and back for more. So that's a really good book, you guys. It's sugar, salt, fat, or salt, sugar, fat.
That sounds good.
It's one way, but the history of the industry is phenomenal in that book. So I highly recommend that you take a look at it. I should get him on the podcast. We should
That would be a
definitely
great idea.
talk about that.
Netflix
Yeah.
also did a really good one about food. I can't remember what it was, but they talked about how like the tobacco industry or the dairy industry, they're like funding all of the scientific evidence, because, I have to say, like, the old school food pyramid that we all grew up with is basically bogus. And I think not too long ago, I feel like they put like Lucky Charms on there or something. I don't remember,
Oh
but
boy.
you know, it pushes too many processed grains, almost no healthy fats, right? And all the fats are like lumped together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meanwhile, it didn't prioritize like nutrient dense foods or acknowledge blood sugar or inflammation or really individuality at all.
Yeah.
So I think, it's time we like shift out of that
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
focus on like, whole foods, balancing your plate. You spoke earlier with like protein and fiber and healthy fats. Like those are all
Yes.
really important.
Yeah. Now, I know we probably have people who are listening to this who are on a pretty clean diet, who aren't getting a bunch of processed food into their
Mm,
diet. And the other thing that I would caution you about if you're in that boat, right? This does still apply to you. And here's why is because sometimes if we're not getting the right nutrients in at the right amounts too,
mm,
we're still going to have those physical cravings. Like magnesium, for example, that is one that most people are deficient in. And so you want to make sure that you're getting in magnesium rich foods like spinach, pumpkin seeds. I love pumpkin seeds because
me
they've got
too.
so many other benefits
Eat
as
them right out
well.
of the bag.
Yeah. 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 So that's important. And then, the other thing that I would say too is if you are eating a really clean diet and you have no processed foods, I would say that salt has also gotten a bad rep.
Mm,
And the salt that you would have like at a restaurant or in a processed food is typically garbage. And so it is garbage. But if you're having severe cravings, right? You can do an emergency reset, right? Take a glass of water and put a pinch of really good quality sea salt in it. And we always recommend the Premier Research Labs pink salt. If you don't have that, you definitely want to get it. You definitely want to try it. If you go to prlabs.com, you can, if you don't have an account, you can create an account with Dr. D 15, right? So Dr. D15, but you can also use that Dr. D15 to get 15% off. But what I do is I'll use the water with a pinch of the Premier Research Labs pink salt. And that makes a really big difference, especially if anybody's got stress, you're running all around, you got a bunch of kids, you got a high stress job, you got all these things coming at you all the time. You will be surprised that we can become salt deficient. And yeah, you guys, I wouldn't say to do it with white table salt. That would be poison essentially. Okay. So you do want a really good high quality salt, but that is an emergency craving reset. Start with that. So if you're like, oh my God, I'm ravenous, I don't know what else to do, like start there. And I will say, Carissa, just because a lot of our clients and a lot of our followers here are perimenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal. So in this second 2/3 or half of life. And when our hormones change, we are also may end up with having more of those hunger cravings. And so you want to be aware of that, and again, I'm going to go back to the high fiber foods because they're going to have you feeling way more satiated and full. And of course, ultimately you want to get to the root cause and get those hormones balanced, which is really important and sometimes a little bit complex, but that's a super important piece as well.
yep. And I think too, I know we touched on it, but I just want to highlight it again because I don't think it gets talked about enough, right? Your nervous system. I know for me, when my nervous system is tweaked or just all over the place, you know, my cravings are a lot, my hormones are probably shifting, my energy definitely shifts.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so when my nervous system is stuck in like that survival mode, that flight, fight, or freeze, we create like that fast comfort. So,
Mm-hmm.
then we have more inflammation, we have those blood sugar swings because our bodies literally prioritize that short-term survival over like long-term balance.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think of it when you talked about like the women who are like eating really healthy and eating whole foods, and why could this be happening to them? And I'm like,
Yes.
that could be happening, like when you're rushing around, when you feel like there's not enough time, when you have trouble winding down at night, or waking up feeling calm or feeling anxious and restless, because let's be real, the world is kind of set up that way, right?
Yeah, it
Many of
is.
us don't get to wake up and kind of like have like that time to relax because we're so busy.
Yes.
So I think it's important to support your nervous system, right?
Yeah, I mean, we go back to adrenals. Adrenals, that's
Yeah.
part of your hormonal system. So if you are always stressed out, your adrenals are burning out. Yeah, you can expect a lot of those cravings. And a lot of time what we're doing, like even when we're craving sweets or sugars or things like that,
Mhm.
it's almost like we don't realize what we're doing is self-medicating, right? Trying to get
Yeah.
that boost in energy to
Mhm.
self-medicate to keep ourselves going. And while that piece of whatever super sweet thing may give you that immediate response, over the long term it's making it worse, not better, right?
Yeah.
And so we really want to pay attention to that. So we're always, you guys go back to our other Lunch and Learn lives, we're always talking about different things for stress management, stress relief,
Mhm.
because it is primo importante, right? You can have the best diet in the world, you can be taking all the right supplements, but if you are constantly stressed out and not doing anything about it, you can expect to have cravings and weight gain and all of that stuff, because you're not taking care of yourself properly. So
Mhm.
super important that you are paying attention to that. And we've always talk about like box breathing, or just intentional breathing. Breathe at the traffic lights, right? I always say breathe at the traffic lights, because it's an easy, if you're out every day, it's an easy reminder. Oh, traffic light, stop sign, breathe.
Yeah.
You want to interrupt the pattern that's taking place in your body. That's why too, when we get really upset and emotional, if we stop and breathe, it is a pattern interrupt, and that pattern interrupt can really do something for us. Even just kind of stretching or shaking it out, or just go like this right now, like just shake
Mm.
it off. You feel like just immediately from swiping, you feel the difference in your body. It feels good.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
pay attention, ask your body, like, okay, what am I feeling? What do I need? What is truly going to nourish my body right now? Right? And it may not be something that's food based. So we have to pay attention to that. One of the other questions I like to ask myself is, does this really serve me? Does this really serve my body?
Mhm.
That's important to be on the lookout for, and paying attention to. Background music for y'all.
Uh-huh.
So, the other thing too is have good things that feel good to you, right? Call a friend, step outside, get into the sun, go for a quick walk, if you can't go out, turn on some music and just dance for a
Mm.
couple seconds. Try something else before, turning to food for that craving, right? Find another way to boost your mood, and then see how you do. I mean, if you're still having a craving afterward, maybe there's something physiological that's taking place, but we've really got to start to alter our immediate responses so that we're not on autopilot. When we are on autopilot, that's when we get stuck.
Mhm. And I think those are really important and great questions, because just a little bit of connection with ourselves is really huge. And we often aren't taught that, nor do we take the time to do it. So when you give your body safety just by saying things like, what am I actually feeling right now?
Mm,
Like, what do I actually need right now?
yes.
Instead of just going through your day on autopilot, like that's the real support that you can give yourself, and then your body doesn't have to scream for your attention anymore. And then you can finally relax into healing. I don't know about you, but there's times where like I'll feel really stressed and I won't know what to do. So I'll sit in front of the TV, but I
Mhm.
don't feel relaxed
Or
when
scroll
I'm done.
social media.
Yeah, or scroll social media. And I do not feel relaxed when I'm done. So that started causing me to think, okay, well, I'm not really paying attention to my body, right? I'm just kind of exiting out of it. So, we'll help you decode the signals, right? Or we'll
Yes.
teach you how to decode your own signals, and
Yes.
build a solid foundation and create a life and a body that feels sustainable and strong. Like, you guys don't have to do it alone, you
Yeah,
know?
you guys, we've got the True Wellness Jumpstart program that we just released, and it's amazing, and just kind of
Yeah.
getting you started on that pathway. If anybody
Yeah.
is if anybody is interested in more information on that, you can just click, jumpstart in the chat, and we'll be able to pick up your jumpstart message and help you out. But you guys, I want to remind you that your brain is changeable, right? We have what's called neuroplasticity. So your brain can rewire, right? And it rewires based on repetition and based on reward. So every time you respond differently, even if it feels a little uncomfortable, you are creating a new pathway, right? You're forging a new road. So start thinking about, rewarding yourself with an experience versus food. Start thinking about, visualizing things to bring you into that calm space, right? Visualizing yourself choosing healthy options when the craving hits. Those are all important things. We talked about the water with the salt. Sometimes just inhaling an essential oil like peppermint oil can help to reduce sugar cravings, or gum. Sometimes gum really helps because you're kind of you're chewing, so it takes care of that craving. Or brushing your teeth. One thing I do, like after dinner, I brush my teeth. You know why? Because I know I'm not going to eat anything after I've brushed my teeth. So it's like a signal for my brain that eating is done for the day. So pick something like that you can do to actually kind of start to set yourself free. But the goal is to not white knuckle your way through cravings, but look at them as, okay, well, this is a sign, this is a signal for me to actually rewire what's taking place, whether it be a physical issue, an emotional issue, a habit issue. But you retrain your body and your mind, and you retrain it to crave things that really actually nourish you.
I think that's beautiful, because if your body isn't broken, guys,
Yes.
your cravings aren't a weakness. Your energy swings, your stress, your hormone shifts, they're just all invitations, like we said, to listen deeper. So, that's what we believe, at South Bay Wellness. Like, that's what healing is really about. It's not about chasing perfection. It's about coming back to your body and realizing that you have way more power than you've ever been taught.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're ready for more support, like, reach out to us, or even if you're watching this on the replay, like, type questions in.
Yes,
We love to answer
absolutely.
them. We love to support you guys.
That's right. That's why we're here every Monday, 12:30, you guys. All right. With that, we are a couple minutes over. So you guys remember, you don't have to fight yourself. You just, you have to listen, love, and rewire. And I'll leave you with those words of wisdom. And thanks everyone for being here today. We'll see you soon.
Bye.